Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, the space for entrepreneurs on a quest for unwavering certainty and purpose. I'm your host, Lauren, and each episode is a compass guiding you through authentic conversations, unraveling the mysteries of your human design chart, and offering tools from the remarkable guest. Join me as we embark on a journey to manifest greatness and create a life aligned with our deepest purpose. This is the space where misfits find their enlightenment. Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. You have your host, Lauren. In today's episode, I have an amazing guest here with me today. This is Sara. She is an intuitive healer. So Sara, kind of tell me a little bit about your journey, how you got to this place that you're at now. Let our audience know and listeners know a little bit about your story.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you for having me. I actually never wanted to become a healer professionally. I just wanted to heal myself, and it was sort of part of my spiritual journey. And I ended up meeting people who were teaching kinesiology, so that was the first thing I studied. Later on, I studied theta healing, and then even later on, I started creating my own modality. And yeah, I was really scared of having clients in the beginning, but once I was certified as a kinesiologist, people started lining up. So yeah, then I just threw my hands in the air and say, okay, I'm doing this. It meant to happen. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
the question.
Awesome. Yeah. When you said theta healing, I love theta healing. I feel like it's for myself too, has been, and my clients too it's been amazing. Now, when you said that you created your own, did you say that you created, what did you say you created your own?
My own healing modality.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What is that?
Yeah. I mean, I've studied so many different ways of healing. So eventually it just, developed by itself, more or less. I have a conversation with a client and we muscle test. So I still use kinesiology. That's what muscle testing is. And we find the beliefs that are either blocking or missing. And then I go into the quantum field and I change them. Yeah.
Okay. So is that kind of like Akashic Records? Is that kind of like what you're doing?
Not really. I'm using my intuition and I channel often past lives, not every time. Depends on if it's connected to the issue that the client has. And then it comes to me through images or words or, different things. And then we muscle test and see if that's true or not true. And I make a list and we change it.
Oh, okay. Now the question I had that you had put on your form of questions that I had that I wanted to ask was, can you elaborate on the connection between the lack of unconditional love in childhood and the development of perfectionism and burnout?
Yeah. So when we don't get unconditional love when we are children, we start looking for the next best thing, which is attention. And often it's combined with having parents with too high demands on us. So then we start being criticized and we try to be better and better, and it's never good enough. So then we start to develop the perfectionism traits. Yeah.
Okay. Now with so some of your so if it's somebody like the listeners that are listening here, now if they feel like this resonates with them, if obviously they would, they'll be able to find you to work with you, but what is something that you can suggest to them that they could kind of start by having this realization for themselves, or if they feel like they're perfectionists, because I mean, I know I was one too. So, I mean, I still kind of am a little bit. So what would you recommend them to like start with? Like, would it be like meditation? Would it be journaling? Like, what would that look like for them?
I would say anything that you are drawn to. It's all about shifting your focus from other people to what's inside of you, wanting to be expressed. So anything that helps you do that would be good to do. So meditation is definitely going to detach you from the outside world and connect you with your inner self. And journaling, really good way to become aware of what you are dealing with, what is inside of you. Tapping is a really good self-help tool. You can find so many tapping videos on YouTube, and search for what you are struggling with. I love using creativity as a tool to deal or heal your perfectionism, and start very basic, drawing, like doodling. Maybe do it with your left hand if your dominant hand is your right hand, and forget about the outcome of it. Focus on the process, focus on having fun. Maybe use your fingers when you paint, and only focus on what you're doing, almost like a meditation.
Oh, awesome. I think I'm going to try that because it's funny that you say that because sometimes I feel like in my own work, I'm like so focused on, I have like an overachiever. I have to do, like this has to be perfect. And I realize that like, maybe it doesn't, like that's like, maybe it doesn't have to be so perfect. Yeah. So that's actually, I love that you had said that because, I have an almost 4-year-old. So when we do things, I try to teach her just to kind of do her best. And, it's not like, oh, you have to do it this way. I kind of just show her like, this is, you got to figure out the way that you want to do it. Right. So it's like, that's actually awesome because I always often think that I just want to have some fun in life, because life is hard, right? And it's like we forget that fun. So I personally will have to try that. So hopefully anybody listening that was a message for them too.
Yeah, I think there is too little fun for many women
Yeah.
who are just like what you described now. They're so focused on results and
Yeah.
performance, and that takes away the fun in life. And we need to play more.
Yeah.
That's my big
Yes.
thing. I love
Yes.
playing.
I love that. We
Mm.
need to play more. I love that. Now I'm interested in, and I know a couple of a lot of the viewers will, or the listeners will also be interested in this, is when you said past lives, like exploring like past life trauma. Now, my question to you is, how does it manifest in our current lives, and like what strategies or practice do you like help individuals overcome it if it impacts them?
Yeah. One example is money. It can impact money so much. Maybe you were killed in a robbery that went wrong in a past life, and then
Okay.
money is going to be dangerous in this life. Uh,
Okay.
and you're not going to know it. It's just going to manifest by you avoiding money or spending it as soon as you get it, because it's burning in your pocket, because it's actually dangerous for you, because it was last time, because you actually died. Another thing might be that you were a nun in a past life and made a vow of poverty. And then you're going to reject money because you have this vow still, if you haven't deleted it. And we take vows very seriously, so we almost rather die than break them. So that's why it's so important to delete them. Maybe you were like me, maybe you were killed in the French Revolution because you were rich. Then it's not money going to be dangerous, but it's going to be dangerous to be rich or wealthy or upper class, because that's why you were killed, not because of the money. So yeah, it all depends, and it
Yeah.
will show up if someone has an issue that where it is important to look at it. And sometimes they don't go away straight away when I delete them. And that's because there is some wisdom that the client needs. So we need to dig a bit deeper so they can actually reap that wisdom from that experience.
Right. I love that. Yeah. I was going to say, I've had past lives done before. And I know that one of my past lives, I was when I was in a kid, when I was in like a pool, I would always feel like I would be sucked into, those little vents, in the deep end. And I realized, when I did my past lives before, I realized that I had drowned in before. So, that was this came up and I was like, oh, so, I took myself back to when I was a kid and I realized, oh my goodness, that's why when I was in a deep end of the pool, I would always feel like there'd be a shark that gets me. Maybe I drowned it in the ocean. I'm not really sure exactly what it was, but it actually made so much sense. And I actually don't have that fear anymore. So I feel like, that really, when you say delete, it really does heal so much, especially like money. I feel like a lot of us, what's been coming up for me lately, actually, currently, as I've been hearing, and I know I heard about this, like, and if you can speak upon it, I would love that. But it's the witch wound. And I know that it's something in our DNA. I know that I don't know much about it. I'm trying to educate myself more about it. But I know it has to do with like money, in our DNA and trauma around that. Some of it, or it's that, when the witches like back in that time period would be killed because of their wisdom, right? So it's like, so my thing was like, okay, so what, I know it just keeps popping up, and I know when things pop up, it's like something I need to kind of look at in myself. So do you have any advice? I know it also comes in my business sometimes too. So do you know about that, or is that something that?
Yeah, I've done a lot of work on that, both for myself and for clients. Basically all light workers have some kind of witch wound,
Okay.
or whatever you want to call it. I usually don't say witch wound, but past lives where you were burnt as a witch, maybe you were drowned as a witch, and that was also very common.
That
It's
makes sense.
not so common that it is connected to money, but what can be is that you have you worked as a shaman, which is similar to being a witch, and as
Yeah.
a shaman, you work at a level where you're not supposed to charge for your work. You're supposed to be provided for by the society, but
Right.
we don't live like that anymore. But that makes it very hard for many people who work with healing and other kinds of light work to charge for the work, because they're not allowed to, because they've sort of, that's also a kind of vow they've made. But the witch problem is that you are dangerous. Your knowledge is dangerous. It's dangerous for you to be seen. You have to keep under the radar. Lots and lots of things that can make it really, really hard for you to have a business in the spiritual
Yeah.
area.
I was gonna say that actually makes. I'm gonna have to definitely connect with you after, because that makes a lot of sense too, especially for when you said that it's not. When I first started my business, and like you said, and earlier you said that you didn't want to be a healer. I didn't even. I knew that I had gifts. I knew that I had something like a purpose, like a bigger purpose here than what I was doing. I did work in healthcare, but I realized that, there's events that happened, the universe was pushing me this way. And I realized that when I started my business, I enjoyed doing things just as a servant leader, like just being in service.
Mm.
So then I realized, obviously I was doing that alongside of my job that paid me, like, my 9 to 5 job, and realized that if I needed to switch over to my business, I had to really heal that money wound that I had, of that not feeling safe when having money, or not feeling safe, like giving money, that type of thing. So I do personally know, for me personally, that I needed to learn that. But anybody listening, it doesn't mean it makes it easier, to change my prices or to charge more. And I feel like that when you get into business, especially entrepreneurs, I feel like that's important. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And being burnt as a witch was the first past life that I remembered from
Okay.
when I was in my late teens, and it was such a scary experience.
Yeah.
Just, oh, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but it was so real, and yeah, very, very scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does impact your current life if you haven't healed it all. And it's often so much that needs healing, so
Yeah.
many angles that you need to look at and change.
Yeah. So when is your kind of your process that you do is you would do their past lives, that you would be channeled, they would give messages, all your process that you do. And then do you then you walk your, client, are you walking them through the healing? Are you giving them
Uh, so when once we've found what needs healing, for example, a trauma from a past life,
okay.
I never delete the actual past life, because you might want to have access to that wisdom from
Right.
that. So that's very important to not delete that, but I delete the traumas.
Okay.
So there's nothing that the client needs to go through, or relive that past life, or anything like that. So it's not painful, like in many kind of therapies. You have to go through the pain again. No
Right.
need for that. This is painless, almost. It can be very emotionally hard for a few minutes maybe, but
Yeah.
it will pass. As soon as the healing is done, it will be fine again. So it's that's why I love doing this work, because it's such a soft and kind way
Right.
to heal really difficult things.
Yeah. Yes, that's actually that that's huge, I think, too, with some of the like mentors and healers. I feel like when they go through, I feel like who I've talked to or who I just know, it's like a lot of deep stuff that they had to kind of clear out this lifetime because of like past lives.
Yeah.
And I've always been very, very intrigued with like those why questions of like, why is this way? Why is that way? Like, why do I feel this way? And when I had came like years and years and years, like maybe when I was like a teenager, of like somebody said something about, oh, you're an old soul. And I was like, what does that mean? And I'm like, what does that mean? And the way that they explained it, it's like, you've lived here for many lives. And I was like, what does that entail? What do you mean? So it was funny of like, that's kind of when I started to be like, oh, this, and of course I kept it to myself because I was scared to talk about it. So I feel like when you said about, maybe I know in a past life I was a witch, and, I feel like just from knowing my experiences this lifetime, I must have really been, I always say this, a really shitty person, because I'm like, the karma that I had to pay back sometimes, I'm like, gosh, like, not that to make myself feel bad, but it's like, gosh, I really want to know every single past life. Like, I want to know what I was doing in this time, because it's just like, gosh, like, I really kind of learned, I know coming into this lifetime, I had to learn empathy. So I know that, um, and it's actually, weird for me to say this, but I feel like empathy is not hard for me. Like, I feel like, knowing what I know, I feel like empathy would be hard, but love and compassion is something that I always get first. So it's
Yeah.
like, even with all of my trauma. So it's like, I think that that's very interesting, especially when people become aware of past lives. Would you think that it gives them a lot of clarity on, oh, that's that victim mindset of, because I had that victim mentality mindset. It's just those programmings, right? Like the society and, childhood and, what our parents' generational like stuff that we have to clear out. But would you see that it helps with like the shifting a victim mindset to something that could empower somebody?
Yeah, I just want to mention something about what you just said,
Yeah.
that I mean, we tend to think that it was our fault that we had such a difficult childhood, because basically every light worker had a difficult childhood.
Yeah.
And it's not because we were horrible in a past life, it's because we chose a difficult path so we could, develop
Yes. Yeah.
spiritually as much as possible. It's really tough to choose that kind of path, but it's not because you were a horrible person at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. I was gonna say thank you for that. I always often need that reminder too, because I tell myself like funnily, like I will say like, oh gosh, like I know I chose this, like, but why did I chose to come here again? Like what, please somebody help me with why I chose this. Why did I know it's always, and my mom like she'll say, you always learn things the hard way. And I was like, well, I guess that's the way I learn. Like that's just the way I feel like. But if I'm being honest, I feel like a lot of people like they have to just learn it. They have to try it for themselves. And usually it's the harder way, right? So it's like, it's kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah. And now you need to remind me of your question about empathy. I can't remember now.
Oh no. So what I was asking about is the when you explain, or you said something about the explaining kind of more about the victim triangle,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, can you kind of like explain of like that idea of the victim triangle and how it can shift like
Yes.
one, yeah.
So the victim triangle, either you get born into it or you're not affected by it. That's just how it is. And
Okay.
if you're born into it, you didn't choose it. I mean, on a spiritual higher self level, you did, but in this life, you were given a part in this triangle, either
Okay.
either the victim or the helper, usually for children. You might also be the perpetrator. And it's not something that you chose, it was chosen for you. And it's very, very difficult to get out of it, and even to become aware of it, because it's part of your identity. The first step is to become aware of it. Am I behaving like a victim all the time? Am I behaving like a helper all the time? Or am I behaving like a victim sometimes and a helper sometimes? Because when we're in this triangle, we tend to jump around in it. So one moment with a victim, next time with a helper. And if we try to step out of this triangle, this dynamics that the whole family is involved in, we become the perpetrator, because
Mm-hmm.
the other ones don't want don't want you to rock the boat. They want to keep status quo. So
Yeah.
then you will be the bad guy, and then
Yeah.
you'll immediately feel like the victim, so then you're right back in it again. So when that happens, you have to stay neutral and think, this is just the victim triangle playing out, and I don't need to take part of it anymore. And then eventually, hopefully, things will calm down. But it is tricky. It's very, very tricky. And often when a client is dealing with that, I did for many, many years, but when we do, we often have to delete I am a victim many, many times, because it won't change, instantly, because it is such a complex dynamic. And also, we see it through the media. The media make different countries into victims and perpetrators and helpers, and we are constantly bombarded with this idea.
I was gonna say, that's literally what it's. I was gonna say, you just read my mind, actually. I was gonna ask you if this is the dynamic of the media. Like
Yes,
the is it okay? So
and
that makes sense. It's not just a family dynamic thing. It could be in any situation.
and
Oh, okay.
in the fairy tales that we read or listen to when we're
Yes.
children,
Yeah.
and yeah, so we learn this so early on.
Yeah, like Disney does a very good job of showing
Well, Disney,
not really, no.
no, because Disney changes the fairy tales. The fairy tales are often, originally much scarier, and Disney makes a much softer version of them. And so
Yeah.
I would go to the original ones, Brothers Grimm stories that they collected
Okay.
in the 1800s, I think. So yeah, because they're
Yeah.
real stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like that's, at least I feel like that's a huge, especially because it's not just you giving that clarity on, it's not just family situations. Because I often feel like even just close people that I know are going through a lot of this victim triangle. That's literally what I feel like it is. It's like they're choosing to not play a part of abuse, trauma, you know, manipulation, whatever it is, and it's like they're the victim, like, or they're the villain, or they're the problem, or they're this. And it's just like, I now, like, it makes so much sense for when I decided to create boundaries to help protect my peace, with my own family, not my immediate family, but just distant family members that would really tear me apart. And I feel like that, yeah, I can, from my perspective, I definitely can see where it's like, gosh, I'm not the one that is the problem here, but it's okay. You can make me feel like I'm the problem because I'm just going to go over here. Right. So yeah, that triangle,
Yeah.
emphasizing how it's literally, you feel like you're just constantly like going like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you feel like could help with that, you said the awareness, but also, um, having, would you say, obviously boundaries, obviously deleting that, you said also too, what other things that people could do to kind of help themselves, like would it just be have more education or more awareness of, they aren't the problem or they're not the victim, to kind of help free them from that belief?
Um, yes and no. The first step is to become aware of your own behavior.
Hmm.
Are you behaving like a victim or a helper? And the next one is to take a look at your family. What are
Hmm.
they behaving like? Everyone? What role does everyone have? And at your workplace, what roles do people have? So really, scan your environment and see how that fits into that perspective. Um, it's difficult to change this on your own because it's so ingrained in your
Right.
personality identity. So my my recommendation would be to search for help, find someone who can help you with it, because it is so tricky. It is so tricky, but definitely work on your boundaries. But that's easier said than done. If
Right.
you haven't been brought up and been allowed to have boundaries and been allowed to say no, you have no clue how to do that. And then we tend to end up blaming ourselves and shaming ourselves for not setting boundaries. And I should be better at saying no, and I should do this and I shouldn't do that. You should scrap the word should. Is really, really bad for you.
Yes.
You know?
It's funny that you say that, because when I, like, in coaching like sessions, the people are like, I should do this, I should do that. I'm like, you should stop saying should. Like, literally take that out of your vocabulary. And then when I would get very triggered. So the thing about that is I know I would get very triggered by that word. You
Yeah.
should go do this, or you should go do that when I was a child or a teenager. And even recently, and just jokingly, I'm like, well, you should just shut the fuck up. That's what I usually say. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, because that's literally what you probably should just do. Like, so
Yeah.
it's like, yes, I definitely can resonate with that too. Me as a child, when I first went through that huge spiritual awakening, like 4.5, 5 years ago, I realized I didn't even know what a boundary was. I didn't even know what the word narcissism was. I didn't even know any of that stuff, and realized I was just in that triangle. Like you said, it was like things were hidden from me. And I was like, wow, so I wasn't crazy, like I'm not the crazy one here. It's like having that aha moment, and that connection was really eye opening for me. And I feel like a lot of other people, even for you too, I'm sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's amazing. So you said about seeking help. I know the listeners would love to be able to contact you. What is the best way? And I'll make sure that they also in the show notes have that too. What is the best way for people to contact you if they want to work with you?
I would probably say Messenger on Facebook. Facebook is where I am the most and
Okay.
most active, and respond to any messages. Or through my website is my name, saraaurora.waters.com,
Okay.
and my email info@sarawaters.se, because I'm in Sweden. But Facebook is a great way to connect with me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. You can leave a review and share with somebody that you would feel would gain value from listening. So stay tuned for more captivating conversations in the future. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. See you guys next time. Thank you for joining us on another enlightening episode on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you resonate with this conversation and found it insightful, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Your feedback fuels our mission. Remember, your journey to unwavering certainty and purpose is ongoing. Stay connected with us on social media, and let's continue this conversation. Let's manifest greatness in our lives. Until next time, this is Lauren from the Enlightened Misfits podcast. Stay enlightened, stay inspired, and keep manifesting your extraordinary path.